Good morning, everybody. How are you? We have not done a video on this particular little side channel for quite some time. Um, I started it when I got my diabetes, type 2 diabetes diagnosis, and I wanted to have an outlet for, some personal stuff, some, non-music related content so that I didn't have to uh, jam up the regular channel if I needed to. And we just got busy, y'all. We got busy and just trying to keep up. And I haven't put a video out on this channel for a long time, but I felt like I should make a quick little video this morning because I did something yesterday and I didn't even think about it when I did it, but it confused several folks, and it happened on my Facebook, y'all. Here when I'm doing the Daily Doug and I'm looking at music, that's our focus. You know, I say what I need to. I try to bring the music alive. I try to tell you something about it that is helpful, that is insightful, maybe, and give you my thoughts on it. But if we're not talking specifically about politics or faith or any other type of non-music related human activity, then it just doesn't apply. So I don't say that stuff. Well, I do live in the real world, friends. So on my social media, quite often that's my outlet for, hey, I see this in the world. I see this in the world, and this is what I think about it. And people are like, well, and sometimes it's not so bubbly, because the world isn't so bubbly, and they get a different idea about who I am. Well, I said something yesterday in a post, and I started it by saying, as an atheist, dot, dot, dot. And people were like, um, didn't you work at a church? And the answer is yes. The answer is yes. I've worked at multiple churches in my adult life as a church musician. But yeah, I'm an atheist, friends. And so I wanted to, I've been working at a church for the last 17 years. And I am no longer at that position as of the end of June. And so I have a little bit of, um, I feel a little bit of internal freedom in talking about this stuff now that I'm not at that position, because that professional relationship is over. Let me say this: I love the people at the churches that I have worked for. I absolutely love them. They're wonderful people. The church in general, I have a different opinion of. Let me start by saying this, y'all. I was born into a family that on both sides was whole hog, was very much into a high control, very conservative sect of Christianity. It's called the Church of Christ, not Catholic, not Lutheran, not Presbyterian. It was just this little denomination called the Church of Christ. And my mom and her family are affiliated with that church. My dad and his family are affiliated with that church. And the reason why my mom and my dad found each other is because they went specifically to a university that is run by that particular church. And for people who are in that particular church to find other people who are in that particular church and get married and make babies. Oh, and get a degree, maybe, if you decide to stay for the 4 years. So that's the type of religion that I was born into. It occupied every facet of my life. as the oldest kid in our particular family. I was the golden kid. I am relatively smart. My brain works pretty well. I retain stuff. And when I went to church and I behaved, it made my parents and my grandparents happy. And I liked making my parents and my grandparents happy. So I kept doing it. And you go to vacation Bible school and you go to church on Sunday morning, you go back to church on Sunday night, you come to class on Wednesday night, you do fellowship on Thursday nights, and meanwhile the school that I was enrolled in from pre-kindergarten through 12th grade was a school, guess what? A private school affiliated with that, what I'm calling a religious cult, um, a Christian cult community. And it was one of those things where there were like 20 kids in my kindergarten class, and the same 20 kids went to the first grade class, went to the second grade class, went to the third, and so on and so forth. And every day there was at least an hour of the school day dedicated to being in the Bible and religious teaching, all right alongside of math and geography and social studies and all of that. And I thrived in that environment because I was a people pleaser and I got good grades. My mom worked as the librarian at the school. So, my entire formative years were just intertwined into this high control religion, and the things that were talked about and understood just stuck and never made any sense, right? It's there like a boil, like a like a just an add-on to my personality, to my understanding of the world. And I'm like, this doesn't make any sense, but I'm going to leave it there for now. This doesn't make any sense, but I'm going to leave it there for now. Stuff like we don't use music instruments in our church services at all because we're the best. We're the ones that are actually following church doctrine. Because if you look at the scripture in the early church, in Paul's books in the New Testament, when he's talking about church life in the first century, he's not ever talking about how they used instruments. And it says not to add anything or take anything away. So we're not going to be blasphemers like all of those other Christians, and we're going to do it right. And we're not going to have any musical instruments. It's all just a cappella singing. And we're going to go to heaven, and everybody else is going to go to hell. I mean, my dad still believes that, y'all. My dad is so far gone that he not only believes in a literal burning hell, like my mother, but that everyone not in their particular sect of Christianity is going to burn there for their entire eternity, after they're gone from this earth. And if you doubt at all, if you have any doubt at all that all the stuff that we're talking about is if you have any doubt about what we're talking about, that's a weakness, and God's going to see it, and you're going to go to hell. Meanwhile, I'm 5, y'all, and it's a lot for a kid to wrap his head around. You know, I mean, I read my Bible. I participated in what they called Bible bowls, where they would take kids and we would travel to other churches and we would test our knowledge of the Bible against other kids from other churches to see who won. I remember being in 6th grade driving from Arkansas to Texas just to do a Bible bowl on the minor prophets. the most wasted weekend of my entire life, but I knew my minor prophets because I read my Bible every day, you know. But there was just something about it that I never understood. I never could rationally think, oh, this is a good thing. It was always, this is something that makes my parents happy and my grandparents happy, so I'll do this. I'll just be quiet. And I didn't really understand where all of my anger issues as a kid came from. I I I struggled with managing how angry I got at things. And as I've been in therapy as an adult, a lot of it we've gone back to comes from this dichotomy of just being taught this very corrosive theology as a kid. You know, it it was something that has entirely affected my life, and it stuck with me. And over the past 15 to 20 years, I've been actively, like, politically decoupling from that movement, but also just realizing how much I think the whole thing is not only bullshit, but really damaging and really not a good thing for the people that are involved, for people in general, for society, you know. Um, I was taught that doubt in faith is a weakness, and that a loving God is watching everything you do and judging everything you do and will not hesitate to burn you for all time if you don't follow his direction. And that struck me as, one, not the action of a loving God or a loving parent. I mean, think about it. A lot of us are parents. Megan and I were never blessed with kids. A lot of us are loving parents. I can't imagine any other person, let alone my own kid, ever doing something that would make me want to burn them as a reaction or torture them as a reaction. And here's the all loving, all knowing, God is good all the time God, who promises, I will set you on fire if you do not do this, 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 and this. And I'm like, that is not a loving relationship. That is manipulative. Meanwhile, I'm 6 or 7, and I'm like, this is above me, beyond me. I don't know what's going on, but all I know is that I don't like conflict, and my family situation is better when I just play along. So I play along, and everything else in my life is just like this. And if something goes wrong, I get angry about it. I get angry, and I didn't have any idea as to why all of that was built up in me until I started doing therapy as an adult and realizing not only that I never ever believed any of the religion stuff, but that I resented it and really was emotionally affected by it all. It was traumatic growing up in that high control Christian sect. Um, I got the wrong idea about masculinity and femininity, the role of men versus the role of women, subjugation of women and how to control them. Um, the God of the Bible sanctioning slavery, sanctioning marriage as not one man and one woman, but one man and his property. The more that you read into it. And then you get to the story of Jesus, and I'm like, wait, God's going to bring himself down to earth to fix a problem that he, as an all knowing person, should have known that he caused. And he's going to do so by violating the consent of a young virgin. That's bullshit. That's awful. And people call it Christmas. You know, it's eerie to me. It doesn't make any sense. And then it's like, well, love unbounded, friends. Jesus died on the cross for you to save you from your sins. And I'm like, wait a minute. First of all, there's no evidence outside of the secondhand accounts in some old book that this even was a thing. But you mean that an eternal, all knowing, all loving God sacrificed himself to himself for a weekend, and then he gets to party for the rest of eternity, and yay, we're fixed? It doesn't make any sense. It's the theology is corrosive and the opposite of what all of my senses have told me is a good and just and right way to be in communion, in community, in society, in relationships with other people. You know, so I, against my family's wishes, I do my degree. Well, here's the thing, right? As I get to the senior year of my high school, and I'm going to start picking where I want to go to school, my parents have been and my grandparents have been talking about me going back to their school, their religious university, for my entire life. And for some reason, I'm like, okay, I'll go there. Naive, thinking a school is a school. I'll just go. And I ended up attending this school. I'm leaving its name out because it doesn't need to be here. It's an awful, awful place, y'all. I go there, and I, you know, it's a university, but there's chapel every day, and there's assigned seating at chapel. And they take attendance, and if you miss a certain number of days throughout any semester, they kick you out of school, you know, and we're supposed to be learning how to be adults. And I hated it. I hated the people. I hated the atmosphere. I hated everything about it. And I'm like, I have to run. I have to get out of this place. It took getting out of my parents' uh, basement as a high school kid and going and being around all these other kids who had had the same shit happen to them as kids, yet they were whole hog in on it. And I'm looking at it like an outsider going, I have no idea what you people are up to or what you believe, but you're all crazy. And I fear you, and I don't want to be here anymore. So I tell my parents exactly what's going on. And what do? They respond with love and understanding, and they want to help me through it. Wrong. They disown me. They say, you're going to stay there because that's where God needs you to be, or we're not helping you at all through your uh, university career. And I'm like, if that's the way it has to be, then that's the way it has to be. I'm a freshman. I'm 18 years old, y'all. And I'm 3 states away, and my parents say, fuck you. So what do? I reach out to my grandparents. Thankfully, they help a little bit. I managed to get myself transferred to a state university that one of my friends in high school was going to. I became his roommate for the spring semester, and I'm doing all of it without having any contact with my parents, with my family. because they have disavowed my behavior. Meanwhile, I'm looking at my behavior as I'm looking to live up to my own needs and be the best Doug that I can be. I don't want to be there. And of course they disagree and they torture me with their behavior because of it, because that's all they know from their high control cult religion. A long story short, that ended up working its way out over the next couple of years. I found music as an outlet. I wasn't even doing music my first semester in college. I was doing communications. But once I got my music degree and I thought, I want to pursue this, I want to go to the East Coast, I want to go to Westminster Choir College and do my master's. And they're like, no, you're not. We've got you a job here with where your dad works, and that's where you're going to go, because this music stuff is not conducive to a good life. One, my dad still didn't like that I was writing for instruments for something outside the church. He just didn't understand it and didn't want any part of it. You know, this is the same guy who cheated on his family multiple times and got fired from multiple jobs because he is a serial sexual abuser. Makes sense from somebody who is taught that women are his property, right? He's also an extreme racist, my father, because of his teaching, because of the biblical teaching. He thinks white people are inherently better than any other color of people, and it makes me sick. Makes me sick to my stomach, y'all. But I was able to mend some sort of relationship with my parents, that lasted through me meeting Megan and getting married and start trying to start a career and the whole thing. And it was 5 or 6 years into Megan and me getting married. And were we church going people? No, we weren't. We've both been taught this, and we both had no desire to attend any church service, right? However, I knew all the hymns. I knew the history of it, and being a trained musician in Western music, you learn a lot about Christianity, because Catholicism especially, has a bunch of connection to the development of music itself, Western music itself. So I had the skills. I could play, I could lead people, I could conduct, I could, do that stuff. And so as a side job, I got asked, I got recruited. I didn't seek it out. I got asked to come and be the church musician at this Disciples of Christ congregation in Kansas City while I was doing my doctorate. And it paid me enough money for few enough hours that I could still do my doctoral studies and help our family. So I did it. And they were wonderful people, great people. Their theology was not as evil as the theology that I grew up with, but it was still based on this vengeful God, this God that's built in by humans, right? It's one of the most corrosive lies that has ever been told to people, is that is that we are made in the image of God. That's the lie. People are made in the image of God. We are made in the image of God. Bullshit. God is made in the image of people. God is human. God has jealousy. God has wants to get back at people. God has his favorites. God made mistakes. God is fallible. God is not all good. He killed all of the people on the planet except Noah and his family, if you believe that shit. You know, it's it's crazy. The theology is nuts, right? But good people can be Christians. Also, bad people can be Christians. This is one of the things that I learned through um my therapy. My therapy. One of the things that that I couldn't quite get my head around was I do have this bad understanding, or this, I think that the belief in this theology is inherently not good, and that the people involved in it, how, like, they're not good, right? And my therapist is like, well, okay, good people can use Christianity to be good. Yes. I'm like, yes, they can. And also, bad people can use Christianity or faith in general to be bad. I'm like, yes, yes. So it's pliable to whatever the whims of the believer want it to be. I'm like, yeah, right. So I get involved in a church and I'm like, these are all good people. It's confusing to me. You know, these are people that value women. These are people that are against slavery. These are people that are not racist at all. These are people that, value welcoming the stranger, and being hospitable, and all of that, right? All of the basic, golden rule stuff that you're kind of taught as a surface level bow that gets tied on top of all the bullshit underneath, right? They were fine. And I liked working with them, and they became great friends. And so we worked there. And a couple years later, when I got my degree and I was ready to start doing teaching somewhere, and the only place that I could get a teaching gig in 2008 during the downturn of the economy was back at my old stomping grounds where I did my master's at Westminster. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be part-time there. I need another part of a job. And so I found this Lutheran church, ELCA Lutheran Church. And Megan and I moved back to Princeton in 2009, and we became affiliated with this Lutheran church. And again, affirming, lovely people. Yeah, the theology underneath is very problematic, but I'm like, they're giving us health care and enough money for us to live. So I did it. And it's taken 17 years for me to do anything with my career to the point that I could say no to that salary and still live. I've been wanting to remove myself from active Christianity for a long, long, long time. I don't like it. I think it's a destructive force on this planet. Let me say this: good people can be people of faith, okay? But their faith does not make them good. Their faith does not make them worthy. Their faith does not make them just. That's inside them. They can pick and choose some of their theology that they want to highlight and lift up good stuff. Meanwhile, there are other people that are egotistical and power hungry and just evil, and they see a system that allows them to manipulate others as they seek their own self gratification and power. And that, my friends, is the vast majority of the American church. And it's part of why America is what America is today: a dysfunctional cesspool of evil with good people in it trying to swim through. Most of the people are good and trying their best, but we've got some evil folks that are piously justified in their actions by their faith in an all-loving God who's not all-loving if you actually read the fucking book, right? I am convinced, my friends, in the 21st century that humanity will not survive itself. We will not survive ourselves if we do not get a handle on the rabid conservatives in all three of the Abrahamic religions. In my estimation, y'all have seen my music videos. What my brain does, I love making sense out of complex situations. I love analyzing complex systems. And I'm always doing it. My brain is always on. I think about this stuff constantly and it drives me crazy. So I'm happy to be talking about it now. And I don't think anybody's going to watch this, but whatever. Okay. The rabid, bad people who are using Christianity, Christian dogma for their own benefit, the bad people who are using Jewish dogma for their own power and benefit, and the people of Islamic heritage who are using their faith to sow evil and retribution and all of that. It's the little masses of folks that are so rabid, and they're wielding this stuff at the expense of the human race. You know, we need to completely distance ourselves from, in my mind, Abrahamic religion itself. I think it's corrosive and it has nothing to do with reality. It has no justification for dedicating your life to it. Why would I ever do that? You know, why would I ever dedicate my life to something that I can't see, that I can't ask a question to, that I can't verify, that I can't know is working with me, and whose mere existence is, I'm all powerful, you must fear me, or I'm going to burn you forever, but I love you, but I'm going to kill you. Oh, and by the way, women are your property, and enjoy your slaves, and I don't understand consent, and hey, drink my body and my blood. This is fun, isn't it? It's complete craziness, folks. It's craziness. I have done my best to lift up the good people that happen to be in that system, that are my friends, while completely hating the idea of organized religion, at least this one. You know, it doesn't make any sense. Now, am I still spiritual? Of course I am, y'all. Um, do I think there's a God? I don't think so. You know, if there was a God that was all knowing, who wanted me to know who that God was, then that God would know what type of information I would need to have to be able to trust in that. And so far, in my 50 years on this planet, no God has ever whispered anything like that to me. So if there is an all knowing, all loving God, he doesn't want me to know who he is, if it's a he, right? Quite frankly, I don't think it's a personality at all. It's just energy. It's the energy all around us, it's the energy of the universe. We can wield it for good, we can wield it for bad. And we don't have to have all this dogma and theology and bullshit around it to make it work. One of the things that I read as I was actually getting ready to react to a Peter Gabriel tune relatively recently said, biology, the manifestation of consciousness on this little planet and this sleepy little corner of the cosmos, this is one way that the universe organizes itself to observe itself. We are the universe. We are made up of the same stuff that's in the universe. We are the energy that's in the universe. To be human is to be divine. To be human is to be eternal. And we get this gift of observing and experiencing. And we waste all of our time trying to figure out who's doing it right and who's doing it wrong and who's wrong and who's right and who's this way and who's that way and I'm better and you're worse and I've got to get to the top of this thing. And meanwhile, if capitalism went, if in capitalism, it only works if there are winners and losers. And that means we know that we're going to be like shitting on people while stepping our way to the top. I don't want a system like that. That's immoral. That's unjust. Right? So, with me kind of coming out as an atheist, over the last couple of years, I have lost my entire family. They're still alive, but they do not talk to me anymore. They will not take my calls. They have disowned me for the second time in my life, and it's specifically because of the religion stuff. And it it weighs on me. It's very hard. I miss my mom. I miss having a mother, y'all, even though that mother traumatized me by dragging me to this Christian school and this church 8 times a week as a kid. You still want your mom, you know? And here's a mom that would rather be married to a Trump loving Nazi than to show her firstborn any respect and any love. And it's because of her cult that has disintegrated her humanity. It's ruined her entire life. She could have been something great. She has intellect upon intellect, but she's under the thumb of this cult and had just, married a racist Neanderthal who cheated on her and had me and my brother, and then decided to go to Christian Mingle to find another man who thinks that Donald Trump is the return of Jesus Christ himself. You know, um, it's very upsetting. So that's the long way of explaining how and what I am. I guess I'm an atheist, friends. I've never believed this stuff, but I've grown up with it and I've lived with it my entire life. So if you have questions, if you're also questioning or decoupling or trying to just kind of break away from that, you've got a friend. If you want somebody to talk to, let me know. I still want to keep doing my music stuff. That's what I'm trained to do, and that's what I love doing. But I confused a whole lot of you yesterday, and I didn't mean to. So that's why I wanted to come on and chat a little bit about it today. And I've taken a good amount of time to do it. And so this will be available on my second channel. And yeah, I hope you understand, friends. I hope you, and if you've stayed with me through this entire conversation, bless you. This is just one of those things where I know that the way forward for humanity is not through an archaic theology. It's the 21st century. We know better than that. and it's changing very fast. You know, honestly, I think that the catalyst that started the whole thing really unraveling was uh, just celebrated its anniversary just a day or two ago. Walking on the people taking the picture of the Earth from outer space, from the moon, the pale blue dot. You know, oh, that's us. It's just us. It's all of us too. We're not this country or that country or this color or that color. It's all of us. It's just humanity, you know. And we've evolved to be able to make sense of what we see and what we experience. Now with broadband and the internet across the world, we can see and experience the genocide in Gaza, the genocide in Sudan, the Russia-Ukraine war, the all over the place, and it's hard to cope, right? There's too much. And as we become a global society, all of those old separations, those invisible dividing lines, they're gonna just fizzle, y'all. That doesn't mean we can't still have nations. It doesn't mean we still can't have borders. It doesn't mean we still can't have nations and states and cities and all of that. It just means that we're going to work together. Maybe this part of the world is really good at growing coffee beans. Let's talk about them because we want the coffee all over the place. Where this part of the world is good at having access to oil. Let's not put it in the hands of people that want to absolutely get themselves rich at the expense of everybody else and use it as a shared resource. That sort of shit. You know, the people that are evil, that are leading this charge, that are causing all of this bullshit, are emboldened because they're calling on the blind faith of all of these people to say, well, I believe in God, so I have to go along with all of this evil because I believe in God. And if I don't go along with all this evil, then I don't believe in God, right? Get over yourself. Get over yourself. The God that you believe in isn't worth believing in. Doesn't even exist. It's a fiction of human creation. God is made in a human's image. And it's time that we stop giving any credibility to a theology that would break the human spirit and break our sense of morality rather than provide cover to manipulation and evil and hatred. It's time. It's time. So that's why I'm an atheist, friends. Thank you for listening to me. I'll be back with music stuff on the other channel, but for now, that's going to be it. I appreciate y'all. Much love to all of you. Peace.